The lobby's familiar hush wrapped around Julia as she stood near the front desk, hands loosely clasped, her attention fixed on the frosted glass door behind it. She had expected this to be quick, perfunctory even, but now that she'd asked for Sarah, a strange tension settled in her chest. The kind that arrived not from a looming deadline, but from the sense that something once dismissed as minor had quietly grown teeth. The door opened. Sarah emerged from her back office with a tablet tucked under one arm, her expression professional but warm. She was in her early 40s, composed in the way of someone who managed both people and problems for a living. When she saw Julia, recognition sparked immediately. "Good afternoon, Julia," Sarah said, stepping forward. "How can I help you?" Julia returned the greeting automatically, though her smile faltered just slightly. There was an odd look on her face now, uncertainty, curiosity, and something close to apprehension braided together. "I was hoping you could tell me," Julia began carefully. "What happened to my driver? Brian. I thought he was newly assigned to me, but today I had someone else." Sarah's expression shifted, not dramatically, but enough for Julia to notice. A flicker of understanding, followed by something like regret. "I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have experienced," Sarah said, gently. "Brian actually offered his immediate resignation." The words landed harder than Julia expected. "Resignation," she repeated, the syllables clipped by surprise. Sarah nodded. "Yes." A pause stretched between them. The lobby noise seemed to dim, as if the space itself were waiting. Julia felt a quick, unwelcome twist in her stomach. She hadn't come down expecting this, not really. A scheduling change, perhaps, a sick day, not this. "I see," Julia said, then hesitated. Anxious curiosity rose in her, sharp and insistent, but she tempered it quickly. She was well aware of how easily questions could sound like demands. "Did he say why?" Sarah's shoulders relaxed a fraction, as if she'd anticipated the question. "He didn't offer much information," she said. "Only his apologies for having to resign so suddenly. He told us he wouldn't be able to continue working as a driver with us." Julia absorbed this in silence. "Brian gave notice Friday evening," Sarah continued, her tone neutral but attentive, "shortly after returning from his trip with you." The timing struck like a bell. Friday evening. Julia's mind replayed the scene uninvited. The car, the traffic lights, her words, precise, dismissive, sharp as a blade carefully honed. She had meant them to end the conversation. She hadn't meant them to end something else. Sarah studied her for a moment, then asked, gently but directly, "Did you notice anything abnormal with Brian that evening? Anything that may have contributed to this decision?" Julia inhaled slowly. She could feel the instinct to deflect rising immediately, the well-practiced impulse to offer something vague and polished. But the truth pressed close to the surface, uncomfortable and insistent. "I don't want to get into specifics," Julia said, choosing each word with care, "but it's possible Brian wasn't happy with me that evening." Sarah nodded, not surprised. If anything, her expression softened. "I appreciate your honesty," she said. Julia hesitated again, then spoke before she could talk herself out of it. "Would you happen to have any contact information for him?" she asked, "just so I could reach out, see if he's all right." The request hung there, naked in its sincerity. Sarah didn't answer immediately. She glanced briefly at the front desk, then back at Julia, her professional instincts clearly at work. When she spoke, her voice was apologetic, but firm. "I'm afraid I can't share Brian's personal contact information," she said. "Company privacy policy." Julia nodded, disappointment flickering across her face. "Of course, I understand." But Sarah didn't quite leave it there. She shifted her tablet to her other arm and lowered her voice slightly. "That said," she added, "Brian did list a reference when he applied, Little Sicily's Pizzeria. He worked there previously, and we verified his employment." Julia looked up. Sarah reached for a pen and a small notepad beneath the desk. "I can give you the address," she said, That's public information. For a moment, Julia simply watched as Sarah wrote. The motion felt oddly significant, as though a door she hadn't known existed was quietly being unlocked. This wasn't about logistics anymore. It was about the space between intention and impact, about realizing, too late, that words could linger far longer than a drive across town. Sarah tore the paper free and handed it to her. Julia took it carefully, as though it might dissolve between her fingers. "Thank you," she said, meaning it far more deeply than the phrase usually carried. Sarah met her gaze, a note of understanding passing between them. "For what it's worth," she said, "I don't think you're the first client to forget that drivers are people too, but you may be one of the few who noticed afterward." Julia nodded once, unable to disagree. She folded the paper and slipped it into her coat pocket, then straightened, her familiar composure returning, but altered now, threaded with something new. "Thank you, Sarah," she said again. As she turned toward the elevators, the lobby resumed its ordinary rhythm. But for Julia, something fundamental had shifted. The case was back on track. The trial loomed. Control, once again, was within reach. And yet, for the first time in a long while, she found herself willing, almost compelled, to step briefly off her path, to see where a quiet detour might lead.